Welcome to allfreecrochet.com's learning channel. Come to our website for thousands of free patterns and inspiring ideas. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and our website to continue to receive free patterns and crafting deals. Your video host Mikey is now standing by to give you another free tutorial. And welcome back. This topic I know a lot about. It's about getting the most out of your balls. In today's episode, we're going to talk about variegated yarn in reference to actually getting the most color. Get this, folks, I got a new term for you. I am the biggest variegated yarn snob ever. Think about that one. And the reason for it is that in the beginning of teaching YouTube and doing stuff before teaching on YouTube is that I really liked variegated yarn. Why I like variegated yarn is that I get bored of the colors. So if I'm doing an all white Afghan, you know, it's not very exciting. It's just the color is always the same and you feel like you're doing. So when you're changing colors all the time, it actually makes it feel really good. The problem is that in the beginning when I started teaching on YouTube, I picked this yarn ball that was really quite nice. But look at it. It looks like a train wreck. And the reason why it looks like a train wreck, in my opinion, and it could look nice to you, is that the colors are changing so fast that there's no consistency. It just looks like a circus just exploded on top of your head. Okay, so it's never worked. It's one of those projects that I finished it. Okay, been there. You know, I'm never going to wear that out in public, and it probably was never designed for me anyway. So the problem with variegated yarns is that it likes to change color so frequently that it becomes unpredictable. And so you can probably appreciate when you've done an Afghan and you look and you got way too much red on this side of the Afghan and not enough on the other, and the black is over there, the blue is like, you know what I'm saying. So I've decided over time that I need to look more carefully at variegated yarn to determine something that's more consistent. So what I've decided to do is that I've upped what I buy when it comes to actually buying variegated yarn. What I'm looking for is a number of factors. Well, broadcasting for YouTube has its advantages, as well as our Facebook page, is that we see a lot of yarns that we probably never had access to. And I remember like going back a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years, and this lady had put an Afghan and it changed color so slowly. I'm like, what is that? Because it was just like amazing. It was just like went from really light green to really deep green, and then just like massive. It wasn't not just like a red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And so I got looking into it more, and I stumbled across this here, and this was James C. Brett Chunky Marble. And again, this is one of those variegated yarns that changes color so slowly that a color transition is just slowly working its way in. And as you can see, as you do the entire project, that you can just see the colors just going through this like you wouldn't believe. And to me, it's more artistically correct because I'm not worried about getting a purple in the middle of a color that I don't want, and it looks consistent. So then I got looking even further. What else is out there on the market? And then I discovered Bernat's Mosaic Yarn. Well, here's a Mosaic yarn by Bernat, and no, I did not change the colors. It is doing it on its own, and look how consistent it looks. The blue takes forever, so the green is just transitioning over and over, and then it finally gets to blue, and then it finally gets to yellow and orange. And when you look at it as a whole, it just absolutely looks fantastic. And you would just think that maybe I changed the colors, I changed yarn, and I didn't. It's one of those yarn, really amazing yarn balls on the market that I absolutely love. So much that at the Creative Festival for October 2011, I requested that we get to use the Bernat Mosaic, and of course Bernat made that happen. So it's just one of those things where the colors are changing so much more slower that it can make your project look really more fantastic. So how do we work this to our advantage when doing granny squares when actually trying to make a lot of color with just one yarn ball? Let me show you how. I have two yarn balls in my hand, and they're the exact same balls, but you would never know it because of the fact where this one looks more orangey black and yellow, and this one looks more like peach. And what we don't realize is that the colors are transitioning so slowly that when you look on the outside of the ball, that you actually see two different color changes, because this here is actually wound inside here. And the only way to tell that is through the model number that is usually printed on the bottom labels. So this is Bernat's Mosaic. And so why would you care about this kind of idea? And the reason why is that I'm working on a new Afghan that I'm calling the Bumbleberry pie Afghan, and look what we have here. We have different squares. So in actual fact, one of these balls does actually 12 of these small little squares, which I think is pretty good value. And what you'll find through it is that 12 squares will look almost completely opposite to each other because of the fact that it's transitioning so slowly. So you have some reds here. You will not run into red again until a long transition away. Maybe on square number 6 you'll finally run into it again, but you may not get it right in the circle. You might actually just get it on an edge somewhere, and it really makes for amazing things. So I was working on this Afghan, and then after ball number 2 I noticed, well, you know what, I'm kind of getting the same colors by using the same ball, but you know, just different. So I'm almost ending up with 2 identical squares, and then it hit me, how am I going to get more squares out of this? And let me show you how. What I notice more often than not is that the balls by Bernat are rolled up in the same manner, so the colors are transitioning from the same to same. So no matter what ball you have, that you're going to have a transition from yellow to red at any one point. And so how you get double the colors out of your squares in order to make another 15 of completely different ideas is that you reverse where you're pulling the yarn from. I always pull my yarn in from the center, so when I'm always pulling from the center, the yarn color transformation will be the same every time, even though it will be at a different point. But the problem is that when you do these little squares of 5 rotations, is that it can end up being some that are very similar to each other. So how you avoid that is that you actually start, on some of them, pull from the outside instead of the inside. And what happens there, instead of the orange transitioning to the red, you're going to have red transitioning to the orange, which actually makes it look like a completely different square. So that's how you double up on your balls in order to get the most color out of your yarn balls. So when you're looking for variegated yarn, choose something that's exciting. Choose something that can actually go a long way. Even when you're using variegated yarn and the snippings are very small, they can still look very equal to each other. But when you get variegated yarn here where it transitions within 10 to 20 feet, it is just amazing the difference that you can make in your project for the amount of creativity that you can pull out of it. Until next time, I'm your host, Mikey.